Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Dare to Age Well Now. I am very excited to be joined by Dr. Laura Sparks. And why don't you start, Dr. Laura, with telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, when Angela reached out to me, I was so excited because just the name of the podcast, of course, is exciting to me. Dare to Age Well. I feel like that's a message that I talk about every day in practice, and something that I personally 100% believe in. I think that we were born to be healthy and vibrant and thriving, not just for a few years of our life, but actually for a lifetime. And so it does take some courage and some daring, perhaps, to embrace that as we get into our
Right.
40s and our 50s. But
Yeah,
it's the most exciting time. I think it's a great thing to dare for.
absolutely. And so you are in practice in Lancaster, Ohio, right?
Yes. Yep. Practice in Lancaster, Ohio, just south of Columbus, Ohio. And we've actually been in practice for 30 plus years, which
Okay.
seems like has flown by. I can't believe I've been in practice that long. At
I
this
used to think 30 years was a long time. And then
Right,
now I'm like, you just show up a couple of days in a row and
right,
suddenly
right. What's kind
I
of fun is
totally,
you get to see, now I'm seeing like the grandkids of some of my first patients, which,
right.
I can take that as
As
a
a
old
As a chiropractor,
thing.
that's got to be very rewarding, though.
Right. It is pretty exciting. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And so, what we want to talk about today, I love your philosophy, Dr. Laura, about the idea of like as we reach our 40s and our 50s, what you're seeing is that women have gone hardcore. Like we're driving, we've got goals, we're driven, either taken a corporate path, we've taken a healthcare path, whatever our path, we are driving toward these goals, and we suddenly wake up in our 40s going, wait a minute. Is
Yes.
this is this all there is? And so
And
how is that showing up in the people you're seeing?
yeah, so not only career wise, as I really think about that, it's women. It seems like in general, we do it with our families too. We put our families, ahead of ourselves. Certainly, health wise, we'll always take care of the sick child before we take care of ourselves, which is noble and probably has to be done sometimes. But when that goes on for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of our life, we come to our 40s, 50s, and we wonder how we got to be 40 pounds overweight, or how is it that I've not exercised in 20 years. I kind of even have a theory actually on this sort of related, half related topic on osteoporosis. There's evidence that one of the reasons we lose bone density is because we're not weight bearing. So our bones are as strong as the weight that we put on them. So if we don't bear weight into our bones, they become weak. We lose mineralization, and potentially we develop the condition osteoporosis. Just another example of that is the risk that astronauts take when they're in space, not in gravity. They actually lose mineralization in their bones. So anyway, the whole point is if you've not exercised for 20 years while you're raising children, and then all of a sudden, you try and exercise, you discover you have this condition because you haven't done anything that was weight bearing, for exercise or to keep those bones strong. So that's just sort of one example. And I see that in so many different areas, unfortunately. Um,
Well,
with
and I think that there's an element of it where in our society is like exercise means go to the gym. And I hate going to the gym. Like it's so boring to me. I have ADHD. I love every minute of it. And so a gym
Yeah.
is like two parts, either so freaking overstimulating because there's so
Yes.
much, or I'm supposed to get and sit on a treadmill or an elliptical or a whatever. And then I feel inadequate because I don't know how to use the
Mhm.
weight little machiney things and
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do all of that. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is my journey is to my 50s to figure out how to enjoy weightlifting because I
Yeah.
don't at all. And apparently I'm not the only one.
No, that's such a good question. I love that. And I love that you're seeking it out, and I love that you're looking for a solution. My solution to that 100% is get yourself set up at home. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can get yourself, little free weight dumbbells. To your point, first of all, weight training is so important. It probably is more important than cardiovascular as we age, because we lose muscle tone. It's annoying. As we lose estrogen, we tend to lose muscle tone as we age, and for men, testosterone. So that a lot of times women will lose some weight, and a lot of times they're losing muscle as they get into their 40s and 50s. So really critical that you're doing weight training, but super easy to set up a home gym. There is an author I love. His name is Mark Lauren, and he's written several books. He's a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL. And his first book, and I love the title, it's You Are Your Own Gym. So he teaches you how to do weight bearing type exercises that don't require any special equipment. So when he was a Navy SEAL and they, go on location and they're, in the middle of the desert, they don't have a gym to go to, right? But these guys have to stay in shape. They have to be exercising. They have to, be pushing themselves, or they're not going to be strong for the moment, right? So Mark Lauren, if you want to look him up, You Are Your Own Gym. That's just one of his books. He has several. And start there. And there's no equipment necessary. So that would be, things like push-ups and, crunches. And there's a lot of weight-bearing things that we can do. Wall sits,
I
legs.
this is hilarious, and if my chiropractor listens to this, he's gonna laugh at me because I kind of got to this point where I was like, you know what, I don't care about all of that other stuff. There are two things I care about with this weight thing. Number one, I want to be able to carry my own self, right? And
Yes.
so I started with planks because I'm like
Yeah.
push-ups, give me a break. I mean, I'm just like, okay, I can do planks. The second thing I want to, and this has really started shifting my mindset, is I love to travel. And last year I did what I call a train cruise in Europe, and we went from like Amsterdam, took a train down to Paris, took a train to Geneva, took a train from Geneva to Milan, 6 trains in one day. Which what that meant is
Wow.
I had to take my little rolling bag and
Yeah.
I had to go down the stairs and I had to go back up the stairs and I had to pop on the next train and I had to put my suitcase up. And I was like, this is what I want. I want to be able to lift my suitcase and I want to be able to carry it up and down stairs. And so for me, I was like, yeah, it's important. But
Right.
that was such a cool experience. Like we did
Yeah.
the 6 trains in one day because I wanted to stay along Lake Geneva. I wanted to stay in the Alps. I mean, it was an amazing experience. My husband could not carry 2 bags. Like I needed to be able to carry my own
Yeah.
stuff. And I was like, I want to still do this. I want to still be able to do these very adventurous-y things. I wasn't even hiking anywhere. I just am like, you got to be able to carry your own suitcase up
Right.
and down the stairs because there's not always going to be an Uber to get
Yeah.
you to the next train, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
that's what helped me. And my husband has teased me. He's like, "Are you going to just start like taking your suitcase and carrying it up and down our stairs?" I'm like, "I might. Don't even
I
tempt
mean,
me."
I'm not sure if you're familiar with CrossFit, and that's a bit heavy for a lot of people. But the whole idea with CrossFit is functional fitness. So,
Yes.
we do things that are akin to, lifestyle activities so that when we have to lift a bag of groceries or a suitcase or a child, we have the strength to do that. For a lot of people, you think about when you were pregnant, you eat better than in any other time in your life because
Hmm.
you have to, right?
Right.
And again, the motivation is maybe not for you; it's for baby, but still a sort of higher arching reason. A lot of people get motivated to stay healthy for their kids. But
Yep.
again, we're sort of in our 20s and 30s then. Sometimes it's the grandkids that keeps us going in our 40s and 50s. But I will give you a secret that I think is an important one. I have noticed people that retire young, you know, late 50s, maybe late 40s, early 50s, it is not a good aging strategy from what I've seen. I really feel
Really?
really. And I mean, there is a benefit, I suppose, if you really double down on all the wellness kind of things in your retirement on purpose, then of course it can be a really healthy thing, right? Most people don't do that. most people, there's that saying, if you can do it anytime, you do it no time, right? So if you can exercise anytime, you're retired, you got nothing else to do, you don't have a job to go to, then it just never happens because there's no schedule and it's just sort of a free for all and you end up doing whatever comes down the pike. That's what I see with a lot of retirees. Now again,
Wow.
broad generalization, of course.
Obviously, yeah, obviously exceptions.
People that stay active, that have to get up in the morning, that have a purpose, that have a reason to get themselves out of bed, and get up out of a chair or stand for 4 hours at a job or, shovel if they're in a sort of, that kind of role. They're motivated to keep themselves healthy. It's amazing the difference. Amazing.
Wow.
I know.
So I love that, and it's really been a driving force for my husband and I because he had two different uncles that within months, and this has been in the early 90s, within
Mhm.
months of retiring, either had a major health event
Yeah.
or just had, well, both of them had a major health event, and one of them landed in a assisted living, and the other one passed away very quickly. And you're
Yeah.
like, no, you've waited your whole life to live.
Yeah.
And now that you thought you could live in retirement and you are no longer here. And what I've seen, we've actually created a bucket list of before 70 and after 70, because I've seen people that after 70, it's not that they don't still travel and they're not still active, there's just a little more caution
Yeah.
and there's just a little less energy. And so,
Yeah.
like, I want to go to Machu Picchu. I'm not going to wait till I'm 70 to hike
Right.
Machu Picchu, right? And
Right.
it's just an observation that I've had, but I'm intrigued by this people that retire early. You mentioned a few things, the purpose. So if someone retires and they replace that work with something of equal purpose,
Right.
they could offset that. I'm thinking a friend of mine that retired and she's now a professional volunteer and she's
Yeah.
vibrant.
Right. Right. And so, of course, that's the ideal situation, honestly, right? To have enough time to maybe do the self care that you haven't done before.
Right.
Taking care of your health becomes more and more of your full time job as you get older. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you do
Yeah.
it well when you're in your 20s, 30s, it's not as much of a job. If you neglect yourself when you're 20 and 30, then it's going to be more of a full-time job as you get into your, later years. So the thing is, I guess, when you're in your retirement, whatever that looks like, um, maybe it's still working at your former job as a consultant, or
Hmm.
maybe taking on less hours or less of a caseload if you're a professional, but still staying in that game. It probably shouldn't be a grind to you anymore. Most of us have enough experience in our professional roles or whatever that job was, that we can maybe pivot, stay in the working world where a lot is required of you, and still have the time, I guess, to
Yep.
take care of you on the backside. And that's, I think, what we kind of do badly on the climb, right? All of that takes seat.
When we started this, we were talking about people in their 40s and 50s. So you said if you neglect your health in your 20s and 30s, then retirement's going to be bad. I feel like we can snag that the where we started here with the 40s and 50s is
Yeah,
a great place to, like, hey, this is the time that you can, like, change that trajectory. Is
yes.
that what you are advocating for?
Yeah, 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 for sure. And I, of course, after 30 years of practice, I want to catch it as early as we can. But
Sure.
it's not too late. It's never too late.
Right.
It's never too late. Just like the smoker who stops at whatever age,
Mhm.
there's a rewinding that happens. The lungs actually do heal over years and years of not smoking or, drinking. Unfortunately, it's kind of the same thing. Abusive drinking, the liver, there is evidence that the liver will heal if you stop abusing it, at even
Wow.
40 and 50. So same principles apply, no matter what we're talking about. If the body, it, again, after 30 years of practice, I think that the miracles that I see, quite frankly, are not the ones that I perform. it's the miracles that my patients perform every single day, you know? The body is miraculous and an adaptation machine. So if you take care of it and begin to love it again into health, it is going to respond in spades. It's almost like, you know, if you I'm a dog lover, and my dogs just thrive when I pet them and love them, and it's an immediate thing, right? You just see them, like, they just warm up to that, and they just light up to that. Humans do too, but it seems almost like it's front and center on a dog, right? And I feel like
Sure.
that's what the human body is. If you just give it a little bit of love, it just bounces back in spades, and that's for sure what we see, even in 40s and 50s.
So we're going to start exercising, even if it's using your own body.
Yeah.
We are going to find purpose and really look for what is that thing that keeps us, it sounds like, mentally active. Is there anything else, one other tip that you would say that we could really kind of change that trajectory?
We could talk about nutrition a little bit. I think we could all stand to eat a little bit less. You know, there's evidence that if you are at a lower weight, just, you know, on the lower side of that continuum, if you're a little bit underweight, you tend to live longer. And I think one of the reasons, possibly, and this is just again sort of a personal observation, if we spend all our time digesting food, um, maybe there's not as much bandwidth for healing and developing and you know, getting stronger. We're just always
Oh,
digesting
wow.
and always in that kind of insulin state. I'm sure you've read or seen the benefits of fasting. You know, fasting is a reset. Intermittent fasting, or even just long-term fasting, is kind of a good reset for the brain, for the body. And I'm not saying you have to be aesthetic and, you know, be a monk and not have any pleasures. I think there's benefit to pleasure too, for sure. Um, but maybe just taking a step back and thinking, you know, my diet, just as an example, and this is what I sort of advocate with our patients as well, is simplify it. You know, you don't need dessert with every meal. You don't, you know, and I'm not an ogre. I like my dark chocolate like anybody else, but I think to just stuff ourselves full of too much all the time, it doesn't feel good. None of us feel good like that. And I feel like we almost live like that, or look for excuses to to overconsume in so many different ways. I think step back, simplify diet, simplify life. You know, it just feels so much better to me.
Okay, well, we started this episode with me telling you that I hate weight loss. I guess I'm just going to be the every man in this episode, or every woman, sorry.
Okay, good.
Because every time I hear intermittent fasting, I'm just like, "Rah." I like, it
Okay.
feels like the latest craze. It feels
Yeah,
like nonsense. And like, I have, of course, a number of chiropractor friends, and
yeah,
they're like, oh, Angela, intermittent fasting. And I'm like, I mean, I don't eat. I stop eating at 7, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. I'm having my last snack and I don't eat until 7 in the morning. See, you're doing it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyway, and so, and
you
then I've seen people that go like crazy extreme and they're like, no, 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 I can only eat from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. And I'm just like, I don't understand the logic. And you are the first one that and probably because I shut down that I never listened to what everybody explains. But what I heard you say was if you don't take a break from digesting, you don't have an opportunity to heal. I don't know that I've ever heard it
yeah,
in that way, to be able,
yeah,
as like an opportunity, giving our body a break. I've always heard it as like calorie constriction. It sounds like a way to lose weight. It sounds like all of those, but not as a way to give your body a chance to do some other functions.
yeah. So that's huge. That actually comes from the work of Lynn Jeanette Rositas, and she's a holistic nutritionist. She's developed a program of eating called the Plan, and she talks a lot about inflammation and how foods are inflammatory, um, and the way we eat can be inflammatory. Here's an example: if you eat at 11 o'clock at night, let's say you're
Oh
out
yeah.
and maybe working or partying or whatever you're doing, and it's 11 o'clock at night, you decide to go have pizza, and we don't really do that in our 40s anymore, but we certainly do it when we're college age and 20, 30, or young parents. um, that feeling that you have of like bloating, and you go to bed and you're burping pizza or can't even sleep because you just finished eating, that's inflammation. That's your body saying,
Mhm.
no way, I don't want this. I didn't want to eat. I wasn't hungry. I was tired. I wanted to go to bed. And we take that as, oh, I'm just too full or I ate too much or whatever. No, that's inflammation. So,
Mhm.
inflammation or an inflammatory event is your body trying to talk to you and tell you, no, 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 I didn't like that. I don't want that. I don't want you to do that. And I'm going to give you some inflammation now so that you back off and I can like heal from this thing. So that's sort of talking about another side of the coin, but 100% there's evidence that if we're eating constantly, that we are consumed with digesting that food constantly, and yes, the other systems can't work at the same time. There's another proven fact that if we're in insulin dependence or just digesting food all day long, we can't burn fat. It's impossible. So our body is smart enough to know the difference. If you're feeding it all day long, then it's in an insulin state, right? We need
Mhm.
insulin to push that food, push the sugar into our cells to make it usable for energy, right? So as long as you're eating all day long or snacking all day long, then you're in this insulin state. And glucagon, which is the fat burning hormone, will not work at the same time. So if you want to get rid of fat, if you want to shed fat, you have to get into fat burning, and you only do that when you're fasting. So you are fasting from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's a 12-hour fast. Now they say I think it's 12 plus hours actually puts us into
Sure.
fat burning. But the leaner you are in general, the better you are at fat burning. So your body's already figured out how to burn fat. Now, if you're overweight or if you're obese, you're not using your own fat for fuel. And that is why somebody that's really heavy will often say to me, I'm just hungry all the time. I eat when I'm hungry, and I'm hungry all the time. And the reason they're hungry all the time is because they don't burn their own fat. So even if
Hmm.
they take a break for 2 hours, where somebody that is a good fat burner is going to immediately go into fat burning. And so even though they have very little fat on their body, they're going to burn that fat for fuel immediately. Somebody that isn't using that system, it's like any other muscle in the body. If you're not using fat burning, you almost can't. Your body doesn't know how. So that's what intermittent fasting will do, is teach your body metabolically how to burn fat again.
So the idea, I've seen several and have used pretty effectively the idea of like eating small, small
Mhm.
things every 3 hours throughout the
Yeah.
day so that you're never starving. Like I get teased a lot because people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're eating again." And I'm like, "No, y'all are snacking all day. I'm not snacking between those, but at 3 hour increments, I make sure I give my body food so that it feels really restful and comfortable that it knows I'm never going to let it go 8 to 10 hours in the daytime
Yeah.
without food." um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. So
maybe
you're,
not never, but I see what you're
yeah.
saying on the fasting. But I'm talking like 100 to 200 calories just like every 3 hours to keep that blood sugar. So anyway, so I'm trying to overlay what you're saying with intermittent fasting and this thing that has worked. It
Yeah.
sounds like I'm closer than I think.
You probably are. And actually, if you've kind of figured that out as your sort of magic formula and it's working for you, I wouldn't change it. Don't
Hmm.
change it. Are you within your normal weight? Do you feel like you
Oh
feel
yeah,
good at your weight?
yeah. in the last like probably 4 or 5 years, I've just on my health journey. I treat goal setting as like an experiment, and so I'm always not always experimenting, but I'm trying things. Like right now, I'm on a legal separation from alcohol. Um, so we have been separated for 4 months now, and I am seeing remarkable improvements in
Yeah.
mental wellness and emotional stability and
Oh,
consistency in weight and things like that. So I'm like, oh, this may have to be a permanent divorce.
yeah.
I may have to move this. Anyway, so not
Congratulations.
again. Thank
Congratulations,
you,
by the
thank you,
way.
thank you.
That's a hard
I
one.
did well, and I did it one time for 13 months, and so I knew I could do it. And you said this before we started recording. Um, Women in our 40s and 50s need to get to know ourselves again.
Mm,
And I think that's kind of what my journey feels like is like I'm
mhm.
trying to figure out what does my body
Yeah.
need? What does it want? What works for it? You know, the alcohol has never really worked for it, but
Right.
you know, if I
Right.
like how fun I feel, right? And
Yeah.
so I last year set out to try to be fun, more fun without alcohol. And so sometimes I'm
I love it.
crazy silly. But that when I figured out that was the why I was drinking was because I liked feeling super fun,
Yeah.
then I chased after feeling fun and being fun. So
Mm.
anyway, um,
I
this
love
has
that.
been fantastic.
I love it.
Thank
I love
you.
it. You seem like you're very fun to me, and I
Oh,
don't know that you need the thing about it, we have to remember with alcohol is we're not thinking straight, right? Like
no.
we're impaired. So even our opinion of ourselves, whether we believe it or not, is impaired. You might not actually be as fun as you think.
Oh no. I had three different friends that said you're more fun when you're drunk. And I'm
Oh,
like, thanks y'all. Appreciate you. Now, I
you know
can
what?
now look back. I know, need new friends, right? Except some of them are family. But here's what I figured out is that was also during a season where I was really unpacking a lot of emotions, and I really wasn't. I needed to feel all my uncomfortable
Oh,
feelings.
yeah,
I
yeah,
needed to,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And so, I think part of the reason why I can get to this fun level now is that I have kind of moved through that season.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Laura, where can people find you?
So, probably the best place is go to my website, drlaurasparks.com. I blog every week. Sometimes miss a week when my kids are busy. I still have two teenagers and they keep me hopping. Um,
Huh?
but I blog every week, and most of my blogs are about exactly what we talked about here today, and sort of more the mindset part of it. So this week's blog is about routine, making our self care routine just as important as brushing our teeth. You know, getting out for that workout or eating well or whatever it might be. It is, routine is what's going to make great results routine as well, right? So um, it, find me there. I'd be more than happy to chat. I do one-on-one coaching, and of course, I'm in full-time practice as well. So I stay pretty busy, but I answer all my emails, so you can reach out to me there.
Wonderful. I am going to offer you an alternative word for routine because if anybody in your world is ADHD, that instantly is terrifying. And so I have started substituting rituals because there's something about ritual that feels almost celebratory. And and the reason why is because routine feels very stifling, especially for my little ADD brain. Like, oh, I can't, because I can't do it consistently. So then I'm going to do it bad. So then I'm going to perfectionism, blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
Anyway, and so
yeah, yeah.
you guys don't be turned off by just the word routine. Like, just think about it as like, hey, rhythm. Oh, that's the other one I like to use is what is your
Oh, that's a
rhythm?
good one. That's a good one.
So rituals and rhythms that way they work with life because yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
routines scare some of
yeah,
us.
yeah.
Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been a fantastic episode of Dare to Age Well Now, and I appreciate your time, Dr. Laura, and I hope everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast, actually. It's been really fun. Thank you.